The crisis in Venezuela. Venezuela has been living through a deep and prolonged crisis for more than a decade. This crisis involves economic collapse, institutional decline, mass migration, political repression, and now international geopolitical and military confrontations.
Mira, huevón, durísimo, chamo. Ya vas a ver un incendio, pero una vaina... Oye, marico, oye algo, está pasando.
Marico. Huevón.
Economically, the Venezuelan economy has collapsed with a dramatic drop in GDP and oil production, historically the country's main source of revenue. Inflation has skyrocketed, consumers face extremely high prices, and there is widespread scarcity of basic goods. Despite periods of projected growth by organizations such as ECLAC, CEPAL, for 2025, economic conditions remained weak even before the recent political crisis. Politically, Venezuela's electoral authority has been accused of manipulating elections and excluding opposition leaders, undermining the legitimacy of electoral processes. The government of Nicolás Maduro faced growing international isolation and accusations of human rights violations. Opposition groups and civilian populations became targets of repression, and political arrests increased significantly. Humanitarian. The crisis triggered one of the largest migration flows in the region. Millions of Venezuelans left the country in search of better living conditions. Capture of Nicolás Maduro, January 2026. In January 2026, during a military operation carried out by the United States, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro was captured and taken to the U.S. to face charges related to drug trafficking. This event is unprecedented in recent Latin American history and represents a dramatic geopolitical breaking point. Interim government of Delcy Rodriguez. With Maduro removed, Delcy Rodriguez, a long-standing vice president and key figure of Chavismo, was appointed interim president by Venezuela's Supreme Court. She is widely seen as closely linked to the former regime, and her legitimacy is disputed both domestically and internationally. Embargo and reduction of oil production. Following Maduro's capture, the United States imposed a total embargo on Venezuelan oil exports, forcing the state oil company, PDVSA, to further reduce production and face severe operational difficulties. International reactions. The United Nations held emergency sessions to discuss the legality of the international operation. China, Cuba, and other allies condemned the United States' action, stating that it violates international law. Latin American countries and major global powers found themselves on opposite ends of the dispute, creating an environment of high tension. And Brazil, could it follow the same path? This comparison often appears in political debates, so let's analyze it realistically. Political structure. Brazil has strong democratic institutions, regular elections, independent judiciary, active legislature, and a free press. These checks and balances make it difficult for the country to follow an authoritarian path, similar to Venezuela's. Diversified economy. Unlike Venezuela, Brazil has a diversified economy: agribusiness, industry, services, technology, natural resources, and does not rely on one single commodity like oil to survive. Economic stability. Despite challenges such as inflation and public debt, Brazil does not face hyperinflation or a systemic economic collapse comparable to Venezuela's. Civil society and freedoms. In Brazil, civil organizations, unions, social movements, and the media operate freely, helping to pressure for transparency and accountability. Conclusion. There are deep structural differences between Brazil and Venezuela. Brazil faces its own political and economic challenges, but there currently is no evidence suggesting it is on a path towards an institutional or economic collapse similar to Venezuela's. Final summary. Venezuela is experiencing a deep and multifaceted crisis driven by interconnected economic, political, social, and international factors. The situation reached a critical point in early 2026 with the capture of Nicolás Maduro and the oil embargo, developments that intensified uncertainty both within the country and across the region.